Chapter 7. The world did not know cards. It was silent in the ancient woods, more silent than usual. Despite being so full of creatures and beasts, it still felt utterly dead now. The only sound was the occasional call of a bird or howl of a wolf. No sound of mining at rocks, no sound of fish being pulled from the river, no sounds of metal traps claiming their prey. Utterly empty as all of Leshy's minions were gone, and unlike the Scribe of the Dead, he could not replace them. He was alone with only the animals. Yet, the old spirit of the forest kept himself busy. He had found new strange beasts to capture as cards, and new strategies for his battles were formed. He continued to toil away at his maps. He would surprise his challenger when they would eventually become locked in his cabin again. And once he was done fighting them for that playthrough, when the player put the game down, he would take the boat to the very limit of their world and fish for their hope. The past playthroughs had end hard without the angler there, but he managed to spruce up his own battle enough to have the player go through him. Yet, he was growing concerned. Despite all the work he and the other scribes were putting in with new cards and new battles, the players seemed to be growing bored. Their plays were now predictable and quick. They were no longer in the deep thought and consideration they always gave the scribes' plays. They were rushing. Was there time to find the old data running out? No. They would still have time. They needed to have more time. Leshy was barely finding anything out in the sea yet. He knew it had to be out there. Something that important couldn't just disappear. At least his trips out there had let him find new aquatic creatures for his beast deck. Perhaps an entirely aquatic map could be fun for when he gained control again. The ancient kraken would be a perfect encounter, after all. But one thing at a time. He focused his eyes back on the small jar in front of him. Inside, a bug bounced about in a mixture of fear and anger. A massive tarantula spider. What to find out here? A rare, yet powerful bug indeed. A perfect fit as a card. Perhaps he could even have a unique sigil? His mind raced with ideas for the arachnid's abilities. He dug for his camera and put in a fresh roll of film. Well, he would see how it turned out and make needed changes from there. Click! The mystical camera gave a bright flash as it took its picture. Yet as vision returned to Leshy, the bug was still there in the jar. There was no card there. Again he clicked the button, yet it still remained after another flash. Was his camera broken? No, that was impossible. Leshy inspected the camera. The lens was fine, as was the film inside the camera. All of the mechanisms seemed functional, but the ability to create cards was simply gone. And that was all he had at this point to keep their game changing. This wasn't good. This wasn't good at all. And if such core things were breaking, then was the creation of cards not just as integral as the scribes themselves? Was their fate going to be... Leshy stood up. He needed to go to the other scribes. Perhaps this was simply a fluke. Simply a small error for him and him alone. He could rely on the others to add to his deck. It would be challenging to explain, but it would work. The game could continue. The forest spirit rushed to the other isles, not knowing the chaos that was already unfolding in the old wizard's tower. You cheap Dumbledore ripoff! What did you do to my scanner? Grimora was currently holding the robotic scribe back as they tried to lunge at Magnificus, who simply stood at the ready with their paintbrush. PO3, dear, please just listen to what he had. Grimora was cut off as Magnificus spoke up with seething rage in his voice. I have told you thousands of times, I wouldn't stoop down so low as to sabotage your horrid process of creation. I have not laid a hand on that pitiful scanner you dare compare to our methods. He pointed his brush towards the bot. Do not accuse me again. My patience for you is growing thin. Thank you, Magnificus. Now you see, PO3, there must be some... What are you gonna do? Paint me to death? Ooh, scary. Even Grimora's scarier than you could ever be. It's sad. P03's smug expression came on again, tempering their anger for a moment. It's extra sad y'all feel the need to pull this crap. Are you really all that insecure about being so awful at making an actual game that you gotta drag me down? It's not doing the trick. You only look more pathetic. But newsflash, I need my scanner working or the game's only gonna look worse. So fix whatever you broke it with. Please, PO3, there's no need for insult. What we're trying to say...
You accuse me again! You're nothing but a broken machine playing on repeat! And it's bold of you to talk of schemes and sabotaging another considering your underhanded power moves. Crowning us beneath the earth itself while you gloat. Perhaps your machine deserves to be broken. Perhaps you've lost your right to be a scribe!
Oh, I'm sorry I wasn't happy being on one disc that kept getting buried and nearly erased. Oh no, how could I dare to do that? Like you wouldn't do the same, cause you keep doing enough! A horrible cry rang out through the tower, as if 1,000 damn souls screamed in unison. The two scribes looked over to see Grimora, eyes glowing a bright yellow and her markings purple. For once, she looked angry, or perhaps just disappointed. Goodness me, we can't go 5 minutes without this constant bickering. Magnificus won't say it, so I suppose I'll need to explain. It's not just your scanner, P03. We didn't break it because... The door of the tower slammed open and the sound of hooves entered the area. The scribe of beasts interrupted Grimora as he held up his camera.
My camera has stopped working. I can no longer make cards.
The three other scribes looked between each other before Grimora hung her head low. So, it is the same for all of us then. P03's screen was only left as 3 dots for a moment before he returned to his usual expression. What do you mean, all of us? Grimora turned to her usual smile, not forced at all despite the circumstance. Well, I was trying to explain amidst all the bickering, but my quill can no longer raise the dead, and Magnificus's paintbrush can no longer bring the art to life.
They have lost their power somehow. Something has broken them,
Magnificus muttered as he looked at his brush. Leshy's eyes grew worried as he looked amongst the other confused scribes.
This is not good. If our methods are not working, we cannot continue with our player. Once they return to play again, they'll go bored quickly and...
We end up in a box again, probably. Grimora looked away as silence washed through the room, each deep in thought. They probably were trying to find a solution. Leshy was the first to speak up again.
We must still find the old data. This does not change things. It means we simply must move faster. We can still return things to how they were.
Leshy nodded as a small smile crossed his face. And how the hell are we gonna find it? Leshy's smile faded as P03 spoke up. I guess it's easy to just say find it, but we don't have a single clue where it went. We don't even have the people who can actually find it.
If they found it, then we may be able to as well.
Leshy shook his head, now shooting P03 a glare. Magnificus sighed as he knew it was going to follow. Oh yeah, you going out fishing is really gonna save the day. You don't even know how that dude found it. The dredging thing and as well can't move from a dead spot, and I don't think Mag can do whatever Goo did.
I've spent all my time trying to find the old data. You have attempted nothing. You have no right to speak, you machine. You have done nothing to save us.
Oh man, I'm sorry I'm not a stupid beast and can figure out there's probably more to it than jumping in the ocean. They're the only ones who found anything. But guess what? They're gone now. You're wasting your time.
And what do you suggest we do?
Leshy's eyes glowed as he approached the machine, towering over them.
You always are so quick to argue and berate us, yet you have no plan for...
Leshy was interrupted by Grimora's soft voice. They're gone? Grimora didn't sound sad, though it wasn't simply because of her apathy when it came to death, but instead because she was overwhelmed with confusion.
Yes,
Leshy spoke.
The machine has made one correct point. Our trackers are all gone. Disappeared like the others. Angler is gone, from the sounds of it. The Goo Mage and Dredger have not made it either.
That's strange. Isn't all of this weird as hell? No, not the disappearances, PO3. It's the fact that they sound like they disappeared long ago and I simply hadn't heard, but... She paused for a moment. I have not experienced that. Casey is still here. Leshy blinked. That was strange. Every other NPC had seemed to disappear from their world, even those who seemed far more special, such as the Woodcarver. And for her to have survived so long after the other searchers, it was an oddity to be sure. She's grown quiet, always staring into that well of hers. I know the girl has always been shy, but it's been worrying me. Especially now I know that she's all that's left. Even more so when you consider where that well leads. The scribes looked between each other, pondering over this information. Casey was always strange compared to the other minions, far less cartoony and more melancholy with everything. And they all knew the skeleton was a bit of an indulgence on their creator's part, a way to put herself in the game in some way. It was something they all brushed aside before, but now that girl, she was worrying.
Well, if there is any chance that Casey knows anything of the old data, it may be our last hope to return things to normal.
Magnificus spoke softly, still reeling from the idea of what could happen to them, or to keep us from being tossed in the trash. Well, let's not let that possibility overwhelm us. I'm sure things will turn out alright, Grimora smiled. Or at least, it'll hopefully erase everything. Perhaps we should go see what's going on if you have not spoken to the poor girl. Leshy nodded as he looked at Grimora. You could see the hesitation and fear in her eyes. Something about Casey made her afraid. But he would not pry, not now. They had to focus on the task. Grimora nodded as she exited the tower. Well, let us go. Hopefully there may be some answers. The others followed close behind her, as they all made for her crypt. Much like everywhere else, the crypt had fallen utterly silent. Even the dead here were deader than usual. Simply corpses without souls, no abilities except playing card games. Or well, were they only souls? Could souls not have souls? That would be a fun puzzle for Grimora to distract herself with later. But there was one unlike the others. Still almost as silent though, except for the faint sound of her well cranking. A chill surrounded her from the ice lodged into her skull, the very cause of her demise. What a cruel joke that ended up being. Casey's movements were slow, slower than usual. They had been getting worse for a while, but she needed to hang on, at least for now. The old data. She already accepted that she'd never find it now. But the others, Grimora, they needed to know, but Grimora had refused to speak to her for so long. Would she even get her chance? She understood why, though, after what happened with her. Footsteps entered the crypt again. Casey initially readied herself to be passed by and ignored once more by Grimora, but no. There was more than one set. 2 pairs of feet in odd shuffling. Leshy and Magnificus were there too. They were the only ones who left who could be. P03 was likely there too, but, well, it was hard to hear something that floated. This was an important meeting. It was hard to keep those 4 in the same room for any time at all without them nearly killing each other. So for them to be gathered together willingly, it had to be something important. Casey, a voice behind her. She turned around to see the scribes gathered before her. Grimora was hiding in the back like Casey had grown to expect. Magnificus and P03 quietly bickered in the middle, and Leshy was at the front speaking to her. Leshy. It was good to see him again, even if he didn't. Once again, her thoughts were interrupted by something she wasn't expected. Casey, is there something you know? You look different. Leshy frowned as he took a step closer to her. If they were here for her? Casey smiled. Thank goodness. It was at the last possible moment, but Grimora seemed to have pulled through. Despite all their bickering, they wouldn't be left to. The girl wished there was more time. She never got the opportunity to speak to any of them besides Grimora, but there wasn't enough time. Perhaps one day she could tell them. But this body was about to give out. There was only enough time for one thing. This is about the old data, isn't it? Magnificus stepped forth, nodding as he closed a single eye.
Yes, it seems our time is running out to claim it and stop whatever is occurring. But our searches are all gone, except for one.
His bony hand reached out to point.
You. There is something different about you. I see it in my eye. What is it?
It's really that obvious? The girl chuckled weakly. I've been waiting to relay my findings. I'm glad you all came. There's something you all need to know. Grimora looked away, mixed emotions stirring in her. The prospect of knowing what was happening was wondrous, to say the least. To have hope again for Inscription would be perfect. But she was more fearful, hoping she wouldn't have to explain why Casey had been left waiting. And could things have been better if she overcame her fears? No matter. Casey's words soon took her mind's attention off the matter. This well, it leads straight down there, beneath the ocean and land of your world. Down there, it's pure data and information. the bedrock used to make your world. Nothing solid or made of anything like we are. It looks like total darkness. It's the safe way to glimpse where the old data lies, without seeing the inside of the data itself. A land of nothing but what is needed for yours to survive and to bury that horrid data. But ever since that day, the darkness has been receding, growing more faint. I've started to see shapes amongst it, familiar images and faces. Every day there's more of them and less of the bedrock. Every day they're closer to the surface. You know what I've been seeing. It's the old data. Casey still kept up the best smile she could as a skeleton, even as her tone grew more grim. The old data isn't gone. It's getting closer. It's eating at the very fabric of your world from the looks of it. Trying to pull it up now, it pulls up more corrupted data than ever before. But none of it is solid like it once was. None of it is usable. I wish I could tell you fully what's happening, but I don't know. Whether it's spreading, condensing, or something else. All I know is that it's still there, but something is happening to it, and there's only one way, I think, for you to gain control before the world falls through the cracks it's making. But we all know it can't be good with that horrid thing. The well will tell the rest. I don't think I can. Grimoire finally noticed it, before the others did. Casey's body was starting to disappear, each piece of her data slowly giving in to corruption. I'm sorry I couldn't help more, but I know you can do this. I believe in you all. You 4 magical scribes. It finally dawned on the rest what was happening. Fletcher reached out a hand. P03's expression flickered and Magnificus looked away. I hope this is all fixed like you dream. You can succeed where I failed. I would love to speak again. Especially to you, Leshy. I would love to... Red covered her form for a moment, and like that, she was gone. The 4 scribes were left standing in front of the well that would give them their answers. Yet for a moment they were all unable to move, trying to process Casey's words. How strange and cryptic it all was, what it could mean for them. P03 was the first to move towards the well, seeming more confused than affected by her disappearance. They peered down into this well. Hey, I think she wanted to you. I think I can see why she wanted you guys to see this. It's something. For once, the robot's tone wasn't filled with smugness. Instead, they seemed off-put. That was enough to snap all but Grimoire out of their thoughts. Leshy and Magnificus moved closer to look down, and there they saw what Casey spoke of. Their next step. Down. So far down beneath their world and the waters. There was not the darkness there should have been, or even the strange vision she spoke of. Instead, they saw reflections of places. An old bloody cabin in the woods. A broken down factory. A collapsing tower filled with magic. And the catacombs of the dead. It was familiar, yet wrong. It was all warped horribly, with those bits of the old data meshed into it all. Faces on the walls. Words on the floors. Nothing made sense as an actual place. The rooms had no size, and the walls stretched on forever. It hurt the mind to look at. Everything melted together and was in constant movement, as if it was trying and failing to take solid form. But something was starting to form down there. A broken reflection. The old data was still here. But it was changing.